Good morning. Welcome to the Board of Supervisors meeting for June, 13th. Madam Clerk.
The closed session agenda includes item 1, pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6, personnel matter, conference with labor negotiator Judy Hawkins, Director of Human Resources and Risk Management, regarding Deputy Sheriff's Association, Sheriff's Management Unit, Service Employees International Union, and Calaveras County Public Safety Employees Association negotiations. Mr. Chair.
At this time, we'll entertain public comment. There is no public comment, no public present to make comment, or no one wishes to present to make the comment on this item. We'll adjourn to closed session. I'm sorry.
Item 2 is conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation, one case, pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D2. Mr. Chair.
At this time, public comment on item 2 of the closed session. Seeing no one here from the public to make a public comment, we'll adjourn to closed session. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Board of Supervisors meeting, Calaveras County. Madam Clerk.
So the report out of the closed session from this morning. Item 1, pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6, personnel matter, conference with labor negotiator Judy Hawkins, Director of Human Resources and Risk Management, regarding Deputy Sheriff's Association, Sheriff's Management Unit, Service Employees International Union, and Calaveras County Public Safety Employees Association negotiations. No action was taken. Item 2, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation, one case, pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D2. No action was taken.
Thank you. At this time, we'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. At this time, is there any announcements by any board member or staff? Okay. Seeing none. We have recognition, and I'm going to defer to Supervisor Clapp, or I'm sorry, Madam Clerk.
Item 3 is from the Board of Supervisors, a proclamation recognizing local photographers and thanking them for the submission of photographs to be permanently displayed in the Board of Supervisors chambers.
Supervisor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, Madam Clerk. This is a really neat day, and I really am excited about what we're looking at behind us here. I think it really brightens up our workspace, and I think it shows a lot of the beauty that exists in our county. I'm just really pleased. I think this is a really nice tone, and each of the districts is represented, and I want to thank everybody, especially our clerk and the Spirit Committee of the county that made this happen. It wouldn't have happened without them. So thank you very much. And now I get the privilege of reading the resolution. This is a proclamation recognizing photographers and thanking them for the submission of photographs to be permanently displayed in the Board of Supervisors chambers. Whereas in March of 2017, the Calaveras County Spirit Committee, in coordination with the Board of Supervisors, launched a contest seeking photographic entries from the county residents of all 5 supervisorial districts in Calaveras County. And whereas of the photographs submitted, 1 photograph to represent each supervisorial district was chosen to be printed in large format and put on permanent display in the Board of Supervisors chambers. And whereas the photographs that now hang behind the Board of Supervisors dais had been provided by Gail Slott, Gordon Long, Mark Kirkendall, and John Slott. And whereas each photograph is a representation of the beauty that is Calaveras County. Thank you. Mr. Chair, can I have a...
At this time, I'd entertain a motion.
Public comment.
Oh, I'm sorry. Public comment. Oh, you're cut in front of Bob.
Marty Crane, I think we all noticed these the second we walked in, and it's phenomenal. And I know that there's at least one of the artists in the room. I think we should acknowledge him. Maybe more, I don't know.
They are gorgeous, and when you get tired of them, I have a place at my house where one would go real well. But
Have to get a line body.
the only criticism I have is I would love to see a rainbow. Maybe next time we encourage some rainbows, because we know we have lots of them. And that's the skies are beautiful. The clouds are just like reality, you know, or a dream. I need a rainbow sometimes. Thank you.
Good job.
I'd like to raise a point of information before my time starts. I'm just wondering if Mr. Lutz or anybody else could comment on the amount of Measure C taxes collected to date.
Sir, I can't hear you.
I was wondering if Mr. Lutz or anybody else could comment on the amount of Measure C taxes collected to date as it relates to my comments.
I believe we're addressing the proclamation. Public comment will be after our
I thought this was
proclamation.
public comments. Okay, sorry.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Good morning, Board. George Fry. I think this is awesome. I hope we do other things like this, and thank you very much, Diane. This is really great publicity for our county, for our County Board of Supervisors, and for our artists in the county. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fry. Any further public comments on the proclamation? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board for a motion.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Moved by Supervisor Tofinelli,
Second.
seconded by Supervisor Mills. No further discussion, I'll call for a vote. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed indicate by saying no. Proclamation motion is passed, 5-0, unanimous.
Therefore, be it proclaimed, the Calaveras County Board of Supervisors commends the photographers for taking part in the photo contest and thanks them for sharing their beautiful photos and allowing them to be appreciated by all members of the Calaveras community visiting the Board of Supervisors chambers. Thank you very, very much. This is a wonderful thing for the county. And now you got to come up and get your resolution.
And I believe for photo op, we're going to have the entire board go down there for the recommendation of our Madam Clerk.
No, I'm gonna take the pictures. I take the record. This is my job.
Diane needs to be in the photo.
I don't. Okay, we want to slide this way. There we go. Slide over. Everybody slide over. Keep going. Oh, that's good. A little bit more. This end, a little bit more. Like y'all like each other. Okay, smile. Okay, hold on. Why does yours look so much better than mine? Okay. Yes.
Good job, Diane. Okay. Supervisor I'm sorry, Madam Clerk.
Item 4 is from Health and Human Services to proclaim June 2017 as Elder and Dependent Adult Abuse Awareness Month in Calaveras County.
Supervisor Collette.
Thank you. Proclamation declaring June 2017 as Elder and Dependent Adult Abuse Awareness Month in Calaveras County. Whereas nationwide each year hundreds of thousands of older, frail, and vulnerable citizens are abused, neglected, and exploited by family members and others. And whereas of the estimated 45,171 population of Calaveras County, 21% are 65 years and older. Whereas of the estimated 45,171 population of Calaveras County, 14% are disabled and younger than 65. And whereas in Calaveras County, Adult Protective Service respond to over 350 reports of elder and dependent adult abuse in the last fiscal year. And whereas elder and dependent adults abuse is an issue that no one should ignore, all citizens, especially our most vulnerable citizens, should be able to live safe, secure lives without fear, neglect, pain, or exploitation. Whereas Elder and Dependent Adult Abuse Awareness Month offered Calaveras County an opportunity to build community awareness around adult abuse and provide an opportunity for community members to participate in community efforts to improve the safety and well-being of vulnerable people throughout Calaveras County. And
Any public comment? Good morning, Kristen.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Kristen Brinks, Health and Human Services. Together with our partners from the community, many of which are present today, including the Area 12 Agency on Aging, we bring to you a recommendation to adopt June as Elder and Dependent Abuse Awareness Month. The purpose of this campaign is to educate Californians on the different types of abuse, how to recognize the signs of abuse, and where to appropriately report them to. There's an estimated 176,000 cases of reported elder and dependent abuse in California annually. As you mentioned during the proclamation, Supervisor Clapp, Calaveras County responded to over 350 reports of abuse last year. The state of California recognizes 6 types of abuse statewide: self-neglect, physical abuse, neglect by others, sexual abuse, financial abuse, and mental abuse. Some of the signs of elder and dependent abuse include lack of basic amenities, a cluttered and filthy living environment, unexplained or uncharacteristic changes in behavior, unexplained sexually transmitted diseases, isolation by a caregiver, unexplained debts, harassment, coercion, intimidation, or humiliation. For community members who do suspect an elder or dependent adult may be at risk, they are encouraged to contact our Adult Protective Services. We have our information line on our website. Of course, if anybody suspects imminent danger or harm, we recommend that they contact 911 immediately. If there's a suspected report of abuse in a residential care facility or some sort of a long-term care facility, we recommend contacting the state Crisis Long-Term Care Ombudsman Program, which is also available on the website. This month, we want to recognize that an aware, educated, and diligent community is one of the best ways that we can protect our elder and dependent adults in this community. Our team, in partnership with the Area 12 Agency on Aging, is, you will maybe have noticed in the Calaveras Enterprise, there's some Know the Signs ads that are being ran. We also have a lot of participation amongst our Sierra Nevada counties at the upcoming Elder Empowerment Conference. And so at this time, I'd like to turn it over to my partner and colleague, Kristen Milhoff, Executive Director of the Area Agency on Aging.
Thank you, Kristen. Good morning. My name is Kristen Milhoff, and I am the Executive Director of Area 12 Agency on Aging. Reaching the golden years should be a time to enjoy life with family and friends and not a time for fear and worry. Area 12 Agency on Aging has a wide variety of programs which provide older adults, their families, and the community with information on resources and support services. One of these programs is our Family Caregiver Support Program. Caregivers often experience emotional stress, exhaustion, and anger, which can increase the risk of abuse. We can provide caregivers with respite services and connect them with local support groups, which can assist in reducing stress and burnt out. Helping connect a senior who is socially isolated and geographically isolated can also be a challenge. Our information and assistance staff are trained and certified aging specialists that can help these individuals get connected to their community. We can provide them with information on congregate dining locations, fitness classes, their transportation options, and events at their local senior centers. Another option for an isolated senior would be to connect them with the 24-hour friendship line or to a telephone community program called Senior Center Without Walls. These are just a few ways that Area 12 Agency on Aging can support the older adult population in Calaveras County, as well as work with our community partners, such as Common Ground Senior Services and Calaveras Health and Human Services. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Kathy Topol, Common Ground Senior Services. As mentioned by Kristens, there are many forms of elder abuse, but the two that I want to talk about and that often go undetected are self-neglect and elder financial abuse. Once an older adult loses their spouse, their ability to drive, and many of their closest friends, it becomes very easy for them to isolate. The older adult population we currently have are a generation that are used to taking care of themselves and not asking for help. Very often, this can lead to self-neglect. As the provider of home-delivered meals, we see many vulnerable people in our community who are extremely lonely and isolated, which very quickly can be turned into self-neglect. I would like to remind everyone listening here and abroad to visit their elderly neighbors or a friend that they haven't heard from in a while. Financial exploitation is the fastest growing form of elder abuse and adult with disabilities. These situations commonly involve persons that are trusted in the life of these older adults and those with disabled. These include caregivers, family members, neighbors, friends, and business partners. Too often, reports of such events do not get investigated in a timely manner. This often results in the older adult developing some form of dementia or passing away before enough evidence can be collected for prosecution. Prior to 2009, Calaveras County had an elder abuse investigator. I would like to encourage our Sheriff's Department and this Board of Supervisors to consider funding that position again to help this vulnerable population. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tobin.
Marty Crane, Director of the Volunteer Center, and I also serve on the IHSS In-Home Supportive Services Advisory Committee. I want to applaud all the speakers this morning who have given you the nuts and bolts of this issue, and encourage everyone to take these statements, these facts, these impressions based on experience. And I want to also say that the Volunteer Center has been driving our fragile folks for 26 years now as a volunteer program. But I want to encourage everyone to speak with a louder voice by carrying these messages far and wide, because the people that we are talking about can't get to this podium. They're not here. We don't see them. Essentially, they're invisible because they have no voice. We have to carry it, and we need to speak with one voice, louder and more often. Thank you.
Thank you, Marty.
Good morning, Board. George Fry. I'm the chair of the IHSS. I sit on the Commission on Aging, and I'm also your representative to the Area 12 on aging. And I think it's great that we do this every year in June. Next year, we will be having our conference here in the county, and we need to continue to spread the word and look to our older adults that may be shut-ins and see what we can do and work with the churches and everybody, the community clubs and all, to make sure that we're getting to these people who are shut-ins. And I thank you very much for honoring the older adults.
Thank you, George.
My name's Bonnie Newman. I'm a civic agitator. I'd like to take this opportunity with all these people in this room to throw out an idea, a vision that I've had for a long time, which would assist the population that we're talking about. 21% 65 and over, 14 disabled, under 65. That's 35% of our population, elderly or disabled. More than a third of us, every third person is going to be fit into this category. And I know that we have an IHSS program, and it's, running as well as can be and as largely as it can be, but there's another it's only available for people that fit a certain income. You got to be a low income, qualify for Medi-Cal. So if you make a little bit more, you don't qualify for a program that might help keep you from finding a person neglected or abandoned. And for those people that are outside of that income guideline, there's a need in our county to develop a private pay program whereby qualified people can be referred to those that might need them. In our community, we have over 1,000 people who've been fingerprinted and background checked and have passed, who are not working for the IHSS program, who might be available to go down the street or across the road to help somebody that needs some help. If we could get maybe one of these agencies, the Area 12 or the Commission, to step forward and take on this as a project, so whereby all the people in our community that are already trained, fingerprint and background check, but not working for a client in IHSS, might be paired up with the people in our community who need the help and are willing to pay at least the minimum wages, all that IHSS workers get, but that would be worked out between the worker and the elderly or handicapped person that would be employing them. But if there were a way to ensure that somehow we could get all these people that have come forward and represent agencies to put their heads together and create a new resource, I think Calaveras County would benefit greatly, and this population would their needs would be addressed more fully. Anyway, thanks for the time.
Thank you, Bonnie. Any further public comment on this issue?
Good morning. My name is Mary Ellen Souza. I'll be brief and I won't repeat all the statistics, but I just wanted to highlight that the population that's being talked about in terms of elders, I don't want to lose folks with disabilities in that mix. I'm director and co-founder of Creative Support Alternatives, and we serve adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities. We've been in existence since '92 in San Diego, for 10 years here in Calaveras and in the foothills. As my colleagues at Common Ground know, we share building space for a reason. Our folks, good Lord willing, become seniors. Seniors often become people with disabilities. And so there is a connection there that I think as we focus on prevention of abuse and awareness in the community and all eyes open and people being connected in meaningful ways, people with disabilities and elders share a lot of the same vulnerabilities. And so with that, I want to just take a minute to recognize the folks that are in direct support roles, whether they're IHSS workers or in our organization, support facilitators. These folks are often underpaid. There are very limited funds, and yet they're the boots on the ground. And in our organization in particular, the culture and the values that we set forth when we started in '92 was, in fact, that all of us, whether we're directors or an admin assistant, have direct support responsibilities, because that is why we're here organizationally, and as a community member, I believe that. And so I just want to give recognition to all those folks who are on the front lines, who are providing that day in, day out, often unrecognized, certainly underfunded support that our elders and folks with disabilities rely on. So echoing Kathy's comment about having an investigative kind of a focus that's dedicated to looking into these situations of suspected abuse would be welcome. I realize funds are always tight, but I think as a community, prioritizing essentially what's been recognized as about a third of our population is a valid resource use. So thank you, and I appreciate the resolution being put forward.
Thank you. Any further public comment? Okay. Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board. Any board discussion?
Oh, sorry.
No, okay. At that time, I entertain a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Supervisor Clapp,
Second.
second by Supervisor Tofinelli. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed indicate by saying no. Hearing none, motion carries 5-0, unanimous.
Now therefore, be it proclaimed by Calaveras County Board of Supervisors that the month of June 2017 be proclaimed as Elder and Dependent Adult Abuse Awareness Month in Calaveras County. The Board of Supervisors encourage the community of Calaveras County to learn about adult abuse and ways it can be prevented.
Okay. I believe that Supervisor Clapp will make a presentation of proclamation to the parties involved. Christian, I believe, or Ms. Topol, or Common Ground, or anybody want to come up for the photo op?
Yes, please.
George, you're on IHSS. Why don't you come up there too?
Thank you. We can clap.
So does this mean we're going to continue the conversation and the thoughts on this subject?
I didn't hear you. I'm sorry, what?
So does this mean that we can count on us continuing this conversation further and thinking about the possibilities and putting it on our to-do list of things to talk about?
I believe public comment's over on that one.
No, this is on this agenda. I'm just asking, can we
Oh.
make sure we don't just drop it here? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Oh, wait, there we go. Madam Clerk?
Thank you. Public comment. Any item of interest to the public that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board and is not posted on the consent or regular agendas may be addressed during the public comment period. California law prohibits the board from taking action on any matter which is not posted on the agenda unless it is determined to be an emergency by the Board of Supervisors. If public comment is completed before the 30-minute allotted time period, the board may immediately move to the next order of business. If public comment is not completed during the allotted time period, it will be continued as the last item of business in order to provide an opportunity for the remainder of comments to be heard. Mr. Chair?
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Okay, so if everybody's clear on this, This is a general public comment period. Now is the time to bring up any topic not on today's agenda. There'll be another item-specific public comment period for each item on the regular agenda and the consent agenda. Any items pulled from the consent agenda will also be awarded the public comment period. So if you're here to talk about a topic or item that is on today's agenda, for instance, our sheriff issues on our consent agenda or the regular agenda, please wait till we get to that item-specific public comment period to address the board. I will now welcome public comments on topics not on today's agenda. Please step forward.
Good morning. My name is Nancy Minkler. I'm an attorney up in Arnold. I represent Wendy and Bruce Davison, who are the owners of the Black Bear Inn. Wendy Davison is here with me today. Over the past few days, the Board of Supervisors has received dozens of letters from the business community up in Arnold, as well as local residents. You've received letters from the most prominent members of the business community on the no parking issue, the no parking zone that was created on Oak Court. The Greater Arnold Business Association Board also recently voted unanimously to support the removal of these signs. The board president of GABO is here today, and he will make comments after me. For those of you who are not familiar with Oak Court, it is a very small street up in Arnold. It is less than a tenth of a mile. There are only two buildings on the road. There's a church with a very, very small congregation, and then there's the Black Bear Inn. I walk this road several times a week to and from work. I've been doing it for about a year and a half. I occasionally see a car. I think I have seen some pedestrians. I have never seen a bicycle. Nonetheless, there are two bicycle lanes. There's a bicycle lane on either side of the road. There's no need for a no parking zone on Oak Court because there's plenty of room for bicycles, for pedestrians, for anybody who wants to use the road. I can tell you from experience, 99% of the time that anybody uses the road, they have the road to themselves. I've heard from several business owners that they have approached Supervisor Oliveira about removing these signs, and he has told them that the board cannot remove the signs because they are obligated to have them under the California Vehicle Code. For reasons I stated in the letter I sent to you yesterday, that is not the case. The creation of the no parking zone wasn't a response to any traffic issues on Oak Court. There's no traffic on Oak Court. The bike lanes have been there for years without incident. We learned from County Counsel's office that the resolution to create the no parking zone was submitted by Supervisor Oliveira at the request of one of his constituents who owns property across the street from the Black Bear Inn. The board then approved the resolution to install the no parking zone without any public comment and without following its own code. You didn't do a traffic and engineering survey. We believe that these signs should be removed. There's no reason to delay on this issue. You can rescind the resolution that installed the no parking signs because you didn't follow your own code. We're on the cusp of the summer season when there are a lot of events in Oak Circle, and so we request
Your time's up. Thank you.
This issue be put on the next
Ma'am,
agenda.
3 minutes
Thank
each
you.
speaker. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Bob Doughton. I'm president of the Greater Arnold Business Association. Our board was asked to speak about this matter on the no parking signs on Oak Court in Arnold, and our board voted unanimously to request that the county reconsider their decision to put the no parking signs there. As what's been spoken already, it's a stub road. There's no bike lanes or no parking signs coming into that area. It is the beginning of a trailhead for the Arnold Rim Trail, and soon there will be publicized on the map for the Arnold Rim Trail, both on the web and the printed map, that that's a trailhead parking spot. It means that there will be more people coming to use the trail and more people who want to park there to get out of the cars and walk on that trail, or park there and get their bicycles off their bike racks and use the trail. There's about 500 feet on each side where the no parking zones are, and that equates to, I'm guessing, about 40 car parking spots. If those are blocked off, as they are now, that means there's 40 car parking spots that have to be used somewhere else, blocking the merchants where their customers might park, or ultimately when we have events like we do all summer long, they end up on Highway 4 where it's not nearly as safe. We don't presume to understand the laws or the rules and all this about bike lanes, no parking, anything else. We're not experts in safety. We're not experts in any of that. And how you guys come to make your rules is probably as difficult as we have in our modest little volunteer organization with the Business Association, where people ask us to do things to help them, and sometimes we're not fully informed. But right now, the full information is that there's an enormous amount of people in the community of Arnold who feel that putting up the no parking signs may have been premature, may have meant that we didn't have enough information to make sure we were doing what was the best thing for the most people, 30 seconds. Which is kind of what we're all supposed to do when we represent others. So our interest is simply what's best for the businesses and the residents and the visitors to our community, and we think that by removing those no parking signs, you're going to make it a better thing for everybody involved, at least for the most. Even if there's a few who don't like it, the most will benefit because of it. So we ask you to reconsider and to rescind the decision to put up those no parking signs and remove them.
Thank you, Mr. Doughton. Your time's up.
Thank you all.
Would it be possible to raise that point of information I mentioned earlier regarding the Measure C taxes that have been collected to date?
I didn't understand your question, sir.
I wanted to raise a point of information and see if it would be possible to find out the Measure C taxes collected to date. It relates to my comments.
We'll have to check with our tax collector, sir.
Okay, that's fine if you don't have it. Good morning, Supervisors. My name is John Erdl from District 1. I just came from paying my Measure C taxes. This county is currently attempting to decide between regulating and taxing cannabis versus banning commercial farms and stores. According to a recent study, just the registered farms in this county are responsible for up to 20% of the local economy, or $339 million directly and indirectly. An effective ban on cannabis in the county would cost the county direct and indirect tax revenues. If cannabis farmers are shut down, will they be dining out at restaurants in the county or shopping at local county stores? Probably not. How many business owners in the county can afford to take a 10 to 20% loss in revenue off the top? Some businesses in the county would lose much more than that or go out of business. Speaking of tax revenues, the county has been balancing the budget using funds from the Teeter Fund. The Teeter Fund accumulates approximately $1.5 million per year. The fund was at $8.7 million last September, and the county spent $4.3 million to balance the budget. If the deficits remain the same, the Teeter Fund will not be able to cover the deficit starting in the 2018 to 2019 budget year or as soon as that. But we already have Measure C taxes this year, so regulated and taxed cannabis may already be saving the county from the budgetary fire for an extra year. What happens when the Teeter Fund runs out if there are no Measure C taxes? The county is not likely to be able to raise taxes, so that leaves layoffs to county employees and budget cuts as the most likely result. At the last meeting, the county once again delayed developing regulations to tax cannabis. Because of the county delays approving farms in a timely manner, the county is likely to forgo $1 to $3 million it would have raised this year in urgency ordinance registration renewals. Because the year registration does not start until final approval is given and most farms were approved this year, instead of paying a second year of registration fees this year, most cannabis farmers will get a free year from the county, including me. I did everything the county asked me to. I submitted everything in a timely manner. The county took until January to inspect me. It then took 6 months for my inspection report to make it from code compliance to planning. 30 seconds. Now, my current status is that I am awaiting in limbo for unspecified sign-offs. Your delays in cannabis regulations are costing the county millions in permitting fees this year as well. The longer you dawdle in realizing that a ban is not an option, an effective ban would kill the county's local economy. An ineffective ban would just encourage more illegal growers and punish the ones who are supporting the county financially. Measure C taxes, as well as Prop 64 funds from the state, would be able to fund sheriff staffing to keep the county safe and shut down illegal farms so that we have the lowest number of farms in the county in years.
Your time is up. Thank you.
Good morning, Supervisors. My name is Breck Gonzalez. I'm a board member of the Calaveras County Cannabis Alliance. We did want to submit our suggestions for regulatory compromise for the record for you guys. This was everything stated at the last meeting we had, so I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Benjamin Stopper, District 5. Measure C, the cannabis industry tax passed in November of 2016 with a majority 67% vote. Within the text of the measure, I read for the dispensary sales a 7% tax, sales tax, and a 7% excise tax. From the way I understand it, the sales tax would go to the state, it would be divvied up, and then they would send a percentage back to the county. The excise tax goes directly into the general fund. To my understanding, this part of the tax has not been implemented. With the 3 dispensaries running in Calaveras County, the volume of the collected from these businesses will be in excess of $1 million. My question is why this tax money has not been collected starting January 1st, barring a majority 2/3 vote by the people. It's more money in the coffers, gentlemen. It's a voter initiative. People voted for it in excess of 66%. It's something that should be collected. These dispensaries are doing business here. And I think a majority of those dispensaries are willing to pay their tax and legitimize. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good morning, Board. My name's Elaine, and I am in Mr. Mills, Supervisor Mills' district. I wanted to talk to you about the sanctuary state that Governor Brown is currently calling for. And it's kind of alarming to me because Calaveras County is a very conservative county, and I would feel that our county would not support the use of our tax dollars to do stuff like pay for illegal immigration's attorneys. So I would like, therefore, for you to ask, or I'm asking you to please put it on the board, for you to talk about this on your next agenda regarding sanctuary state and what we can do to protect ourselves. Also, the other thing that is concerning is Governor Brown has also said that he's going to cut off funds. So that's something that I would look for you to also look at when you take a look at sanctuary city and sanctuary state and sanctuary county. Thank you. Please put it on the agenda.
Thank you.
Alice Gallant, Taxpayer Association. 2 items. First one, we'd recommend that you place the Arnold issue, the parking issue, on the agenda after consulting with the planning department and the CAO, and so that you can take action on that. It seems like their request is reasonable, and it should be out in the open, and if something needs to be corrected, it should be corrected. The second item, we agree with the last speaker regarding sanctuary counties. Calaveras should cooperate with the federal government in the law regarding illegal aliens. And I understand that we are doing that, and we should continue to do that. There's no need to to interfere with the law enforcement, especially of criminal illegal aliens. It's very important for the safety and the security of people in Calaveras County that we remain safe. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good morning. My supervisor, Mr. Tofanelli, said that we could turn in our comments about the last board meeting in writing, and so that's what I'm going to do. I thought of another time when someone had an episode with marijuana. He was the valedictorian of his class. He got a scholarship to go to Berkeley. He was a student there. He was found up in a tree with a knife, and apparently he was on marijuana. And these things keep coming back to me, and that's why I feel so strongly about this issue.
Thank you.
Hi, Dina Morris.
Good morning, Ms. Morris.
Good morning. I keep hearing about Measure C and how it passed by 67%, and I just want to remind everybody, when Measure C came before the voters, we were already being forced to endure commercial marijuana grows. The other item at hand was Measure D, which most of our county leaders said, we have to defeat Measure D. It's really, really bad. But should Measure D pass, we will need Measure C. There's no doubt about it. So vote yes for Measure C. And that was the message that was going around the county. So if you could imagine, if we didn't have commercial growing here and Measure C came before us, nobody's going to vote for it. Or if we had a choice whether we wanted commercial marijuana growing and taxation or no commercial marijuana growing, that would have had a different outcome as well. So I'd just like to remind everybody, when Measure C was voted for and passed, it was because of the issues before us at that time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning again. I'm wearing my private citizen hat right now. Mary Ellen Souza with, I live in Mountain Ranch, Cave City area specifically, and Supervisor Gary Mendy is our representative, of course. I have a lot of concerns about my neighborhood and my town and my community, but I keep coming back to you on the marijuana issue because I sort of triage my concerns in front of you. I'm supposed to be on 9 a.m. conference calls every Tuesday. I bumped it back to 10, and I'm still going to be late for that call. So limiting my comments to that particular issue, I was out of town working with our San Diego team last week, came back home and saw the word compromise on the front page of the Enterprise. Compromise is usually a really good thing, both in my personal and my professional life. I think it's a good thing. It didn't feel like a good thing when I read it last weekend, and I'll tell you why. I feel like the vote, the ban initiative that was on the ballot, got shut down on a very well-funded technicality. Now, because it seems that there's fear that it may actually be banned outright by you all, now all of a sudden we're talking compromise. I remember in the earlier days of these proceedings that we were talking about maybe 250 growers. Yeah, okay. And that was like 750. I heard $11 million. There's no guarantee exactly where that money is going to go because there's all kinds of decisions and all kinds of needs. I want to stress that I don't think that a lack of a comprehensive and viable economic plan is solved by marijuana. I run an organization that I very proudly founded on values and beliefs. Values that I learned from my parents as first-generation Americans, and from specifically my dad as a World War II Iwo Jima hero. He wouldn't use that word, but I certainly do. He was a Marine Corps vet, like yourself. I believe values are important. We shouldn't be selling out our town and our county for the almighty dollar. If I believed that the almighty dollar ruled, I wouldn't be running a nonprofit. The issue around parcel size is still an issue. I have 2.5 acre parcels. Behind me is a 20-acre parcel, which when I bought, I believed was BLM because that's what the real estate agent told me, due diligence. I find out it's a privately owned 20 acres. So if we put a 20-acre minimum on pot, I've got it growing behind me. I've already got it growing next to me, and I have 10 grows that I know of within a half-a-mile jogging distance of my house. So I'm just saying that as a constituent of yours, Supervisor Garamendi, sure, District 2 is the place where most of the farms are located, a lot of them, but I'm there too. And I pay taxes, and I run an organization, and I'm active in my community, and I volunteer. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Bonnie Newman. I'm from Double Springs, the first county seat of Calaveras, the county of death. So I've come today either with a story or I've come to bitch about something, so maybe I can get them both. I'm passing around some artifacts I found on my property. And I told you a little bit about Double Springs. My main house is located on an old hotel site from the 1850s. Next door to me was the general store. Across from them was the livery stable, and right across from me was the Wells Fargo stop. I learned all this stuff from talking to the old folks when I first moved here in the 70s before they croaked, and now I'm the only one, I think, that knows those stories. Digging in my property, I find these things, and they're not natural. I believe they're man-made, but I don't know what man made them, and I don't know how long they've been made. I figure they're probably a couple 100 years old. They might be a couple 1,000 years old, but when I find this kind of stuff, including square nails and old hinges and crockery and bottles, it reminds me that the land that I walk on, it doesn't belong to me. I have a deed of trust, and that gives me certain rights, like to pay taxes, but it also gives me responsibilities. And when I see this kind of stuff, I know that I have a responsibility to this land that other people used and walked on for hundreds and maybe thousands of years. And I have a responsibility to provide stewardship for this land so that in the future other people can use it. I know that I'm not of a heart or mind to bring a bulldozer on my property and tear it all up looking for more of this stuff. And I got a creek on one of my properties. I ain't going to dam it up and ruin what God has made. And I ain't going to let an oil pipeline be built over, under, around any property I own, because I know that I only have stewardship of this land. It needs to be maintained, preserved, so other people in the future, if we have a future, can enjoy the land like I'm enjoying it now. Thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie. Any other public comment?
Marty Crane. I just wanted to request that earlier someone came and was recommending that you put sanctuary, the issue of sanctuary cities, states, counties on the next agenda. I really think that if we're going to talk about something, we should put it out there that it's going to be agendized, if you're going to do that, at a later date to allow the other side of the conversation and allow us to gather the information about what exactly does that mean, sanctuary cities. People that use that term, a lot of times they have a little list of things they know that means, but it might mean a whole bunch more or something totally different. So if we're going to be talking about things, I think we need to give ourselves time to encourage people to gather the information and come and share. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comments?
Good morning, George Fry. Earlier this morning when all the supervisors were gathered, I thought about something that I thought might be good for the county supervisors, and that is to have their pictures in some location, either here in this building or somewhere where there's more exposure to the public as to who is governing our county. So it's just food for thought, but I think it's something that is good food for thought.
Thank you, Mr. Fry.
Good morning. I'm Judy Hurley, District 2. Mr. Garamendi, when you were really excited about the photos on the wall this morning, I am too. I share that enthusiasm. However, Calaveras County is becoming known as Cannabis County. Where's the picture of the pot farm?
Thank you. Any further public comment? Okay, seeing none, we'll come back to the board. And I believe we're going to take a 15-minute mandatory break for our Madam Clerk. She's been at it since 7 o'clock. All right. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're back in session. Madam Clerk?
Consent agenda. Consent agenda items are expected to be routine and non-controversial. They will be acted upon by the board at one time without discussion. Any board member, staff member, or interested party may request removal of an item from the consent agenda for later discussion.
Thank you. Is there any member of the public that wish to have an item pulled from the consent agenda? Mr. Fry.
Item 8, please.
Item 8. Any other member of the public? Bonnie. Item 9. Any other item from the public? Okay. Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board. Any board member need to pull an item from the consent agenda?
Chair, I'd like item 2 and item 16.
Supervisor Mills pulls item 2.
Item 2 is
There
not
is
on
no 2.
consent.
5. Okay.
Number 16.
And number 16. Any other member of the board or staff? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to pass the remaining items.
So moved.
Moved by Supervisor Mills.
Second.
Second by Supervisor Tofinelli and Supervisor Clapp. Any public comment on the pulling? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to a motion by the board to pass the remaining items on the consent agenda. Oh, we already did that, didn't we?
All in favor?
All in favor. Thank you, Mr. Sagala. Having a weak moment. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed indicate by saying no. Hearing none, motion passes 5-0 unanimous.
I'm sorry, could you please reiterate who stated the motion in the second?
Mills?
I believe Supervisor Mills made the motion, seconded by Supervisor Tofinelli.
Thank you.
Okay. Madam Clerk.
Item 5, minutes of the Board of Supervisors meeting, regular meeting, May 30th, 2017 at 4 p.m.
Supervisor Mills? you
Yes,
pulled this out?
Chair, I was just wanting to be sure that it is indicated in the call to order, yes, Supervisor Clapp was absent at that time, but he did arrive later. I did not see in the minutes indicating that his arrival at a later point in that meeting. Okay, I just wanted to be sure that that was so noted.
It is, and it's in the body of the comments on that discussion item.
Okay.
It notes the time that he arrived.
That's where I missed it. Thank you very much.
Do we need a motion on that, council? Any public comment on that? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board. Any board discussion? I would entertain a motion to pass item 5 of the consent agenda.
So moved.
Moved by Supervisor Mills.
Second.
Second by Supervisor Tofinelli. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed indicate by saying no. Hearing none, motion passes 5-0 unanimous.
Okay, so,
I believe item 8.
item 8, from the Public Authority, adopt a resolution amending the in-home supportive services work plan / findings and recommendations as established by the Board of Supervisors on January 6, 2003, clarifying roles and responsibilities of the in-home supportive services advisory committee.
Mr. Fry? Mr. Fry, you pulled it, you get to speak first, sir.
Okay, thank you. Good morning again, board members. I think there was, I want to be tactful about this, and I think there was some miscommunication. I didn't even know it was going to be on the board's agenda until I was contacted by phone on Friday evening. And there's been some ongoing discussion. There was a subcommittee that met with the director of HHS, and but it wasn't agendized on our committee's agenda for discussion or action at our last meeting. So we didn't agree at that point because it wasn't agendized, and we didn't know when it was going to be on the board's agenda. So I respectfully would like to pull this item and come back at a later date to put it back on the board's agenda after we've had some time to further discuss this. There are some other issues that need to be discussed along with it. And I just took over as the chair 2 months ago, and there's some things I think that really need to be reorganized.
Okay,
Those
thank you,
are my
Mr. Fry.
comments. Thank you.
Is there a response by staff on this issue?
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Kristen Brinks, Health and Human Services. The item before you is a recommendation from staff to make a modification to the findings and recommendations document that was adopted as the county's work plan for in-home supportive services. It covers a multitude of items, it outlines the duties and responsibilities of the governing board, county staff, and the in-home supportive services advisory committee. Staff did initially brief the in-home supportive services advisory committee that we intended to work on this. As Mr. Fry pointed out, we worked with a subcommittee of the group and then did notify the in-home supportive services advisory committee of next steps and indicated that we would be moving it forward at the subsequent Board of Supervisors meeting. I apologized and spoke with Mr. Fry earlier today if there was any miscommunication. We were under the impression we were being clear and transparent, but we would be happy to continue to work collaboratively in whatever way the board sees fit.
Thank you. All right, we're going to open this up for public comment right now, Marty. You can speak. You can speak on this item.
Okay.
I just want to start your 3 minutes.
Okay. Oh, okay. Well,
Clearly, there are things that need to be discussed with regard to the relationship between the advisory committee and Health and Human Services and the Public Authority and our governing board. The advisory committee belongs to you. We operate and function at your pleasure for your benefit to provide you with accurate and productive advice and recommendations ongoing. Yes, these roles and responsibilities were set forth in the overall work plan, but the item they've objected to forever. And it is also referenced in other roles and responsibilities for the county, for the governing board, for HHS, for the public authority, to all converse and consult with the advisory committee on these matters. And they are of record. So, we came prepared for this today. It can't be done in 3 minutes. But it is critical, and I'll just read this last thing. It is critical that we now find ourselves at the end of a fiscal year, faced with perhaps having to return unspent monies to the state and federal government. Funds that we could have spent on postage stamps, ink, paper, and our easily accessible storage workspace, which is only $500 a year, which is what the committee wanted to do and voted on. We need a clear and decisive message from our governing board that the advisory committee reports to the Board of Supervisors only. Further, the advisory committee must remain separate and apart from all other agencies. And finally, as was clarified by prior Calaveras County Council, the advisory committee does not answer to nor require approval from those agencies. This separation is essential to our ability to provide successful oversight and provide our governing board with sound advice and recommendations regarding home care in Calaveras County. Like I said, there are many areas of interference due to perhaps a misunderstanding of how the advisory committee relationships work in Calaveras County. In other counties, it is my belief that, like Calaveras County, the advisory committee is made up of people who have maybe physical challenges, are seniors, are retired. They don't want to fight the system, especially the system that they pay. They don't want to fight the system. So instead of fighting the fight, they go along and they let public authority control and manage their committee.
Are you speaking as a board member or speaking as a citizen?
I'm speaking as a member of the advisory committee. I worked with the chair and the vice chair, and we've talked to all of our committee members time and again.
Are you a board member of that organization?
I'm a committee member.
A committee member?
I'm the secretary.
Okay. I'm going to extend her period of comment on this. Seeing she's speaking as a board member, I consider that staff of that committee.
Committee member. Yeah. So, okay, well, if you want me to dive into it, I'm happy to do so. First of all, this process is flawed. Why is another agency representing a resolution to change the roles and responsibilities of the committee? The advisory committee is mandated to review their effectiveness and report ongoing advice and recommendations to the governing board, our Board of Supervisors. Written changes to the advisory committee bylaws, with regard to that, the advisory committee is well aware that our bylaws, specifically the membership and the issue of a quorum, are in need of review and modification. Just like what's being presented here today, there are a few areas that we feel need clarification, and we have already begun that work with our governing board representatives, Supervisors Clapp and Tofanelli. Instead, two of the agencies we are mandated to review have chosen to bypass the advisory committee. They thought that they had let us know. We just heard that. I received no notice that this was on the agenda until I stumbled on it quite by accident Friday evening. And so they've effectively chosen to bypass the advisory committee and bring forth a resolution without approval of the full advisory committee and no notification of today's agenda item. With Supervisor Clapp's suggestion, our plan was to present all changes
to the work plan and bylaws at the same time. The proposed word changes were not brought back to the committee for full approval. When the Director of Health and Human Services initially brought up the issue that an advisory committee meeting, after some discussion about their intent, which is what she brought, was they intended to do this. She stated that, quote, "We may disagree," but went on to insinuate that we may have to agree to disagree, but they were in fact going to do it anyway, make these changes anyway. I believe that she may have been under the impression that the subcommittee brought it back for a vote, but that didn't happen. The suggested verbiage was not presented and no vote was taken. Suggested language is appreciated, but we already started this document review process with our governing board representatives. This is our work. We appreciate support, not interference. The advisory committee's expectation is that the role of the, quote, support staff is to provide program updates, distilled legislative updates, monthly service reports, and monthly financial spreadsheets. In the past, support staff assisted with printing needs. That doesn't happen anymore. This sixth bullet point is continuously used by the public authority, and this is prior to our new directors, Health and Human Services directors, prior to her engagement here. So this has been going on for a long time. Has been continuously used by the power of public authority to undermine the work of the advisory committee. The advisory committee has never indicated any interest in engaging in collective bargaining. The union is one part of the home care program, so providing them with information and ideas gleaned from consumers and providers would be beneficial as they carry on their work of advocating for their members. We would provide that same information to our governing board, or we would give it to you and you could pass it on, whatever you decide. The agenda item states that, quote, staff recommends enhancing the language of the fifth bullet point to add, quote, and other programmatic matters, end quote, in terms of what the IHSS Advisory Committee may advise the Board of Supervisors on. In fact, the Advisory Committee should be providing ongoing advice and recommendations on anything and everything that related to the IHSS program, because that's what our mandate is. That's what our mission is to do. As set forth in Assembly Bill 1682, Section 12301.4, each advisory committee established pursuant to Section shall provide ongoing advice and recommendations regarding in-home supportive services to the County Board of Supervisors, any administrative body in the county that is related to the delivery and administration of in-home supportive services, and the governing body and administrative agency of the public authority, nonprofit consortium, contractor, and public employees. That's our job. The sixth agenda items also references that, quote, staff identified erroneous language in the sixth bullet point, end quote, when in fact that's exactly how it is referenced on page 5 of the original work plan. Additionally, the advisory committee is still considering additional verbiage to enhance and clarify our role to eliminate future misconceptions and misunderstandings. There seems to be an effort to discourage, limit, and minimize advisory committee access to the very people we are supposed to be serving. Over the years, and again today, this overt interference is discouraging, disrespectful, and unprofessional. Advisory committee supplies, for example. We cannot easily access the supplies that have been purchased with advisory committee funds because they are inconveniently located in the CHH building, S building. Presently, the supplies are locked in a metal supply cabinet for safekeeping with the key in possession of the public authority and only available Monday through Friday from 9 to 5. The advisory committee should have full control and access to their supplies. These supplies were purchased in 2011, 2012. Prior to that, the advisory committee received $52,916 annually to be spent in support of the work of the committee. The following year, that dollar amount was reduced to less than $6,000. In anticipation of that reduction, the advisory committee invested thousands of dollars in supplies for future use. If we are to safeguard the public money, we must be in control and we must be held accountable. How can we be held accountable if we have limited access to those supplies? Regarding the AC funds, who decides how the funds are spent and how we access the check register accounting? None of this should be influenced by the public authority. or Health and Human Services. It should be just the committee. We would like to bypass the power of the public authority and receive this information directly from the county. If the advisory committee is to be held accountable, the activities and every penny spent must be approved and tracked by the committee and reported to our governing board. All voting members of the advisory committee are mandated to safeguard the public money. In an effort to be transparent and accountable to the public for the expenditure of tax dollars, we have struggled all year to get a check register spreadsheet. This is critical in making effective and prudent financial and program decisions. And I read the other part before when I thought I wouldn't have time. We find ourselves at the end of the fiscal year. So again, this separation is essential to our ability to provide successful oversight and provide you, our governing board, with sound advice and recommendations regarding home care in Calaveras County. We need to be able to work and do our job without being undermined at every step of the way. This is the program card that we created. It took us months and months to create this. We had it ready to go in a couple of months, but due to all of the interference, we weren't able to move forward and get it printed. Half the time we couldn't get through half of our agenda items until just this past year. And we can't keep them in our hands because as soon as the public finds out that the Health and Human, the In-Home Supportive Services home care program is on a two-sided bookmark, in a nutshell, they are grabbing them. So this is, and what it is we with Debbie Ponte, former Supervisor Debbie Ponte's input, we wrote what the governing board does. Here, let me give these to you. You've seen these before. She helped us with the information about the governing board. We worked with CHHS to provide their verbiage, word for word. We worked with the public authority to provide their information, word for word, each time giving contact information for the general public so that they had full access to the people doing the work. On the other side, it tells exactly what the program is in a nutshell, and then it talks about the advisory committee, and this is verbatim from the official documents. The last item on the agenda on this bullet thing is the one that's in question. Provide input on collective bargaining issues. Like I said, we have zero interest in being involved with collective bargaining. It's not our role. It's just not what we do. We're not interested. But when the people that tell us things that are of concern to them, we are, as is stated in the official documents, to turn that over to the powers that be and inform. We're an advisory committee. We don't make decisions, we just advise. So when we put these in our newsletter, which volunteers, some people, a lady who is now passed and served on our committee, she helped us fold 700 of these newsletters. We folded them. We stuffed one of these in there to let people know, hey, we're the advisory committee, but you didn't know we had one. It's a big kept secret. So we stuffed it in there, and we taped. We put a postage stamp on them and a return address. We finally resolved what the issue was on the return address. We get that. If this is returned with our return address, suddenly we know who's a consumer and provider. But we finally realized that through having a full conversation with someone in another department who took the time to talk to us about that. And we understand that now. So now it's CHHS has their return address. So we stamped all these, put postage stamps on them, and we have to turn them over to Health and Human Services to put the mailing address labels on them. And we knew they were going to put a return address sticker over that because we'd already printed it. So we knew that. Instead, they opened up all 700 of the newsletters. They took out the program card, and they, on the part of the newsletter that says In-Home Supportive Services Advisory Committee and our contact information, and it listed all the people on the committee, the governing board, and I believe public authorities, I forget what else is on there. But they put their sticker over that, making it look to the reader like all these people are part of Health and Human Services. We are not. We are the advisory committee. And that's our biggest issue. So they put a label over that, so anyone looking at this, again, doesn't know how to contact the advisory committee, which they should be able to. There are many stories out there. We just know there are. We just can't access, we need to be able to say, look, if you want to, you can send us and you can call us. You can send us a letter. You know, it's your right, your choice. No one's making you call us anything. But if you have something, a concern or whatever that you want to share, this is your right to do that. But we can't seem to get that out there because they took these out and they covered up our return, our contact information. And then, like I said, these were flying out of our hands. And suddenly we ordered, I think, 2,000 of them, or 2,500, I forget, in the initial printing. And so we needed those 700 that they took out of there. And so I asked the Director of Health and Human Services, I said, you're coming to a meeting that we're both going to be in. Do you think you could bring those? Because we need those. And she goes, well, I'll have to gather them up. And I didn't understand what that meant, but apparently they had put over top of the advisory committee contact information, they had put their sticker address on there too, leaving the 6th bullet point to show the thing that they most object to. And then they were passing it out like it was something that they had created. And we want this out there, but we want people to know that they can contact the advisory committee too. Anyway, so I think I've kind of, if you have any questions, I'm happy to. Bonnie's here too, I'm sure she can share. And I don't believe that the advisory committees in other counties work the same way. I fully believe that, I can't remember if I said this a minute ago or not, but they're volunteers. They don't want to fight the system. They just want to do the good work that they signed up to do and work independently, and they want to fulfill their mandate. So if you have any questions, that's...
Not so much for the speaker, but to indicate that this agenda item was very narrow and very specific as to what was being spoken of, and specifically to page 64. I'm hearing a broader discussion here that probably should be a different agenda item with the larger scope of the discussion included. So I'm very concerned that we're not staying on the agenda item and dealing with the modifications that are placed before us in red on page 64. If the IHSS board desires to have this kind of conversation, I would strongly recommend that they have the opportunity to do so via a separate agenda item, and that is my comment.
I apologize, my iPad was malfunctioning. I didn't get a chance to look at the total agenda item. Any comment by Supervisor Tofinelli or Supervisor Clapp? You are members of...
Member, so does Gary. We actually met with Bonnie and Marty for an hour and a half or so in January, and this was the same discussion. And the sticker she was talking about was trying to cover up the part about input on collective bargaining issues. And I think staff has served me well on the committee. They keep me informed on it, and I'd like to thank the staff for doing that. And staff has reached out to the IHSS and offered to help post their agenda and stuff. So it'd be, because there's been many times there's been confusions. They had an emergency meeting one time that I wasn't even notified. It was like within 7 hours in a parking lot, and I don't think they ended up having a quorum, so it didn't take effect. And staff is not, from my position, is not trying to interfere with them. They're trying to help them. They're trying to organize them. And what Marty said, I do want them to approach the board with some of the suggestions they're talking about. But my position is the same as Supervisor Mills. Is page 64 is just a very narrow. It's changing the one verbiage that even Marty was talking about, that they understand they don't negotiate on the contract. And it's just a very simple, in my position, just cleaning up some language in something that's very deceptive.
Thank you, Supervisor. Wow. Supervisor Tofinelli, any comment?
I just have a couple. I'm actually the alternate on this.
Okay.
And the Child Protection Services Agency meets at the same time, so I'm unable to attend any of these meetings, so.
Welcome to the club.
But, you know, there is a long history here of this committee and how it functions. It's been in existence since, I think, 2002 is when it was formed, and there, a lot of time during the early time, they had a hard time even getting people to serve on the committee. Now they have people actively on the committee, and they have a quorum. They're actually able to do business. And they have some good people on that committee that are willing and wanting to do the best they can to see that committee work properly. And I think they're headed in the right direction. I did do some research on this particular item, and I had some conversations, and I think this was a boilerplate that was put forward when it was initiated, and I think a lot of other counties adopted the same boilerplate type situation, and a lot of them are addressing this issue. There are some legal issues about this particular item on page 64, the verbiage of it, and being out in public for any negotiations of private entities. So, you know, I'm just happy to see that this committee is functioning now. It's working, and I'm in agreement that it is a separate committee that serves to the board, and they're an oversight committee and an advisory committee to this board, and they are supposed to be separate and remain separate from the other agencies to which they are looking at or overseeing. So I think it's headed in that direction with the good people that we have on it now.
County Council, do you have a comment on this? As far as procedure or?
If there's a legal question, I'm certainly happy to answer it. I don't have a comment per se, but if you have any legal question, let me know.
All right. Is there bylaws for this committee or? And do we know if the bylaws indicate the situation that's being described here?
The bylaws are in process of being redone also. We had a directive about 3 years ago. We thought it came from Diane that all bylaws have to be updated on all the advisory committees. And we started that process and got bogged down after we successfully modified part of our membership. But it's a lot of work. I'm vice chair of the advisory committee.
Thank you.
We've been struggling with the term collective bargaining for a long time. And we understand some people's vision of it is getting in the bargaining process. We view our role as evaluating the entire program, gleaning information, and coming back to you, the public authority, social services, and anyone who cares to be interested in how the program is working or not working, what might be done to modify it, how we think it could be made better. This term, provide input into collective bargaining. We met with Kristen and determined some new language that might be appropriate. In retrospect, I was a part of that committee, and I'm not completely satisfied with that change of language now. I think there could be some modifications to it, but not only on, what you say, page 53, 54? Well, look on the next page, because 64. Okay. In my packet, it's on page 5, and where they want to make a change. On the very next page, they need to change that section too, because that section also talks about your responsibilities. With the advisory committee and public authority manager input, establish policy direction relative to collective bargaining issues. So there's another reference to collective bargaining. Then also you want to go to the the resolution of 2012-168, where once again reference is made to collective bargaining, in which it says consult. This is the Human Resources Department is mandated or determined to be responsible to consult with the governing board, public authority staff, advisory committee on public authority, labor relations, and collective bargaining activities for the IHSS Employee Bargaining Unit. You know, we keep finding ourselves involved in this collective bargaining issue because that's where we're supposed to be, not participating in the activities, but providing input to the people that are doing the collective bargaining. And it's mentioned over and over and over for a reason, because that was the intent. We were supposed to have our noses in all the stakeholders' business so that we could have an overview, a perspective of how the program could or should be working. And I just handed that out to show you that's just another place that this collective bargaining thing would have to be stricken. And if you want to strike that, then you'd have to go back to the original ordinance, the Assembly bill or Senate bill, in which those activities are also mentioned. So I think with a little more glitching, we could come to an understanding of what our actual participation in this collective bargaining input might be that would be satisfactory to ensure people we're not doing the bargaining, but we're sticking our nose in it and giving our 2 cents. And that's all I have to say. I hate to beat a dead horse, but I'm pretty good at that, so anyway.
Thank you, Bonnie.
Bonnie, I do have a question. You said page 5. This is recommendation number 3, is that correct? Just take a second. I want to be sure we're on the same page.
It was this one right here.
Recommendation number 3?
This is page 5, is recommendation number 2.
Number 2.
And then number 6, page 6 on mine was recommendation number 3.
Okay, so looking at recommendation number 3, this is the responsibilities of the Public Authority Governing Board.
Yes, that's you folks.
That's us.
Yes.
And recommendation number 2 is the duties and responsibilities of the IHS Advisory Committee, correct?
Yes.
Okay, just want to be sure we're on the same page.
Council, I have to come back to the agendized item and the points brought up by Supervisor Mills. Are we on target here on this item, on this discussion? Your comment?
The discussion has to do with modifying the duties and responsibilities for this advisory committee. What's proposed before this board is to add language to essentially read under recommendation 2-2, the 5th bullet point, to read, review, advise, and make recommendations to the governing board on pending legislation, and to add, and other programmatic matters that may impact the IHSS program consumers, providers, and or public authorities, and to strike the bullet that reads, provide input on collective bargaining issues. So as long as the discussion is related to these duties and responsibilities of the IHSS committee, certainly it would be within the bounds of this agenda item. I would just add, just because of what things have been said so far, is as the board knows, all labor negotiations, collective bargaining, they're done in confidential meetings with the union. And one of the difficulties with this provision about providing input on collective bargaining issues is there is no confidential way to get input from this advisory committee without it being in an open public setting, because it is a Brown Act committee. So in order to get a full opinion or recommendation from this advisory committee, it would have to be an open session. So that is where a lot of the problems have been arising with collective bargaining, and that is why staff is recommending that that specific bullet point be removed from the responsibilities and duties of this advisory committee to ensure that all labor negotiations, any kind of collective bargaining, does in fact occur confidentially. So that was the only thing I would like to add.
Thank you, Council. Very informative. Okay, having heard that, any further comments by the board? Then we'll have public comment. Thank you, Mr. Vincent.
Al Segala, Taxpayer Association. I'm kind of bewildered. I don't know what the issues really are. And maybe this should be resolved at the committee level. And then when it's resolved, then come before the board.
Thank you, Mr. Segala.
Cliff Edson, San Andreas. I'm going to agree with Al. This is not a study session. And it sounds to me like there's some communication issues going on. And as far as I remember, the committee was to report to the board as an advisory committee. And I think that you have a very capable director over in Health and Human Services, which also basically advises the board. So then you guys get to make that decision once you get all the information. But in a public setting like this, it's a waste of time. Can't do it here unless you schedule it and bring it as an agenda item. So, thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Marty Crane, I want to thank you for this opportunity. I realize that it's more expanded than what we had intended, but this committee has been struggling for years, and it is critical that our governing board understand the division that needs to happen so that we can be the effective committee. And we've been trying to do this work. And over the years, the committee was controlled, in essence, by the public authority. And that is what we're trying to separate so that we can do what we're supposed to do. And so, again, I want to thank you for that. And we are trying to do these, make these decisions and iron all this out at the committee level. But today, we didn't plan on today. Suddenly this happened. And I would like to thank County Council for clarifying a little bit more about the collective bargaining issue. Usually what we hear is, you can't do that. Stop it. That's not your role. That's not your responsibility. That's generally what we get, and not the full-bodied explanations, which is, like I said, how we resolve the return address. That's easy. We can do that. So I would appreciate some help in figuring out how we do glean this information. What do we do with it? Just sit on it? How do we share that with you, if not in an open context? You know, so how do we do that? So, thank you.
Thank you.
I spoke with the CAO, Timothy Lutz, yesterday afternoon. I really hated to bother him. He's got so much on his plate, but I really thought this was really important. And the upshot of that conversation is that after you folks are finished with the budget hearings, that he and I and the director of HHS, and probably Bonnie, the four of us will meet and try to hash all of this out. I got new information yesterday afternoon from the CAO that when he was in Tulare County, he was very involved in IHSS and public authority, which is a godsend for us. And I looked around at several counties and how they operate their IHSS and their public authority, and they run the gamut. And I looked at Kern County, where I worked as a parole agent for 4 years and worked in a lot of different departments. And in Kern County, the Commission on Aging director was the person that ran the public authority. And so they're, like I said, they run the gamut. And the CAO is going to come to a couple of our IHSS meetings as an observer to see what's going on, what's good, what needs to be corrected, and so on and so forth. I think we're on the cutting edge of really making this a really good committee. Supervisor Clapp has been a real help to us making suggestions. I think the fact that we have a new chair, that's going to help out. I have seen what a nightmare it has been for several years. It took me over 3 years to get on that committee, and the screening wasn't done by the board supervisors or the clerk to the board. When former Supervisor Walensky finally got involved in it, he made it important to the Board of Supervisors that they are in charge of this committee. Okay. And things started to change at that point, and I finally got a fair shake.
So, Mr. Fry, as I understand it, you pulled this item to be removed and addressed later after we do some more research on a committee level? Is that,
yes,
is that
and I'm
your
really
suggestion?
comfortable with it being on a future agenda when we're ready to come back and give you our suggestions.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Board members, Supervisor
Chair,
Mills?
yes, I have an additional comment so that everybody clearly understands advisory committees do not have authority to spend money under California codes. And that unspent money, in essence, this is grant money. This is not a budgetary issue. This is not a budgetary item. This is grant money. And so you have to show a need, and you have to show that you've used it before you can recover the money. So this idea that it's somehow a budgetary item and that this advisory committee has the rights to spend money, I want to assure you that is not a correct assumption.
We understand that.
Thank you, Mr. Mills. I'll bring it back to the board. Supervisor Garamendi.
It's a question for perhaps Ms. Brinks or the county council. Is this, by delaying this and going with what the advisory committee has asked to put this off for more time, is there a timely issue to this? So there's no consequence to not doing it? Because I think it would probably be good to have Ms. Reeves here as well. We're the public authority and she's the program manager. Would that be appropriate in the future? I know she works, I know the thing says it works in collaboration, is administered by HHS.
Yes, Kristen Brinks, Health and Human Services. There is no issue as I can see it. We did write in our recommendation, as County Council indicated, the only potential concern is the legal issue that we've kind of discussed several times today. But no, this is something that's been discussed for a long time. We were working as staff to kind of address it once and for all.
Thank you.
And I would be happy to bring Colleen of our team.
Okay, if that being the case, I would move that would we table it or postpone it?
If you're not going to move it to a date certain, I would suggest withdrawing the item.
Would there be any objection to, I would move that we withdraw the item from the agenda?
There's been a motion by Supervisor Garamendi to withdraw this item from the agenda. Is there a second?
Does that work for you?
Yeah, I just have a couple comments. If we're going to do this, and it looks like we're headed in that direction, when it comes back, there are other areas that need to be cleaned up, as pointed out by Bonnie, with the same language in it. If we can clean all that up when it comes back, instead of just striking one item and it still appears in other language that the committee wants to see, so we can go through it and just do it at one time. I would second the motion.
And that was what Supervisor Clapp's recommendation was.
Well, Mr. Fry, hold on a minute, please.
Sorry.
All right, we have a motion on the floor, if you will, by Supervisor Garamendi to withdraw, and a second by Supervisor Tofinelli with an explanation. Is the board clear on the motion and the second and the explanation? If not, please indicate that you're confused. Okay, hearing none? I'll call for a vote. All in favor of the motion to withdraw this item from the agenda with the intention to bring it back at a later date after further activity and research by the committee and our Health and Human Services, indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, indicate by saying no. Hearing none, the motion passes 5-0, unanimous.
Thank you, Board.
Item 9 is from Behavioral Health Services Mental Health Program to authorize the board chair to sign an agreement with Merced County for psychiatric health facility services in an amount not to exceed $150,000 for the 3-year period of July 1, 2017 through July 30th, 2020.
This item was pulled by Bonnie. Hello, Bonnie.
Bonnie Newman from Double Springs. I talked to Kristen beforehand, but the information that she gave me was really important about this funding, and it wasn't on the website. And what I had asked her is, who qualifies for it, and how long, how much money, and how long you can stay, and what the plan is. And I'm sure Kristen can explain it better.
Got it. Thanks. Kristen Brinks, Health and Human Services. The item before you is a fairly routine item. We have a number of contracts with psychiatric health facilities for individuals who need locked care for a time-limited amount of time. So when somebody is evaluated by one of our mental health crisis workers and deemed to need a higher level of care, this is one of the facilities that we would move one of our community members to, again, for a time-limited amount of time. As Bonnie had mentioned before, the Health and Human Services Mental Health Program does primarily serve those individuals that are Medi-Cal recipients. That's what our contract from the Department of Healthcare Services is for us. We do have other services such as a 24-hour crisis line, etc. But I believe I've addressed all of Ms. Newman's questions.
Question? Ma'am? Christian, question?
Oh, I'm sorry.
This is a budgeted item,
Yes, this is
and it's a renewable contract?
exactly,
We've
yes.
had these contracts prior. Okay, thank you. Any other staff member report on this? I'll entertain public comment. No public comment, bring it to the board for discussion. Any discussion by the board? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Supervisor Tofinelli.
Second.
Second by Supervisor Garamendi. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed indicate by saying no. Hearing none, motion passes 5-0 unanimous.
Item 16 is from the Administrative Office to adopt a resolution continuing a local state of emergency for the winter storm damage from extreme weather events that began on January 7th, 2017 through the month of February 2017.
Mr. Chair, the purpose of pulling this item was because of the previous discussions surrounding the CSAs, and I just wanted staff to indicate what their activity was and how this was progressing in bringing the CSAs into the emergency declaration for roads and the impacts that it will have on them if they're not there. So,
Okay.
is this something maybe the CA would like to speak to?
Certainly. As so many items involving disaster, this item, as we peeled back the layers, is a little more complicated than simply adding the CSA verbiage to the declaration. Some of the issues we have, because ideally we would normally have had a declaration specific to the CSA to make it clean, because we're past the 10-day requirement for posting that. Obviously, that's a moot point. What we've been researching is if we're adding it to our existing resolution, what challenges that might pose versus the fact that this board already sits as a number of bodies, including the CSAs, that by declaring locally, we might already be covered. What we're working out with Cal OES and FEMA is if there's basically their preferred language to include with either a resolution or just reimbursement submissions with the CSAs. So that's the point that we're at now. That's the reason that it hasn't been incorporated into this resolution. The goal is certainly with our next meeting, the 27th, not the special session next week, but the 27th, to have a resolution to this and be able to either report out or have amended this resolution.
And then to be able to communicate to the CSAs when they are we're able to do so. Primarily, I think they're waiting to hear what those might be. Some of them have fairly substantial damage in their road systems. And I know we take care of those roads anyway, so it's not a matter of this is a special deal that we're trying to work out here. It's just a matter of getting them aware of what responsibilities they may have in this as well, and indicating to the county road department what work needs to be done and the level it needs to be done at.
Absolutely.
So thank you.
Does that answer your question, Supervisor?
It certainly does. With that, I just ask for public comment.
Okay. Public comment on this item? Seeing none, I do have an issue I'd like to address. Mr. Krovitz? Related to the storm damage, this item, could you give us a brief, very short update on the Blagan Road issue?
Yes, Jeff Krovitz, Director of Public Works. On May 23rd, the Board of Supervisors approved purchase of a temporary bridge for Blagan Road to be placed on top of the roadway to reopen that crossing to the public. On the 24th, I left for vacation, but continued to negotiate with the manufacturers of the temporary bridges, requesting updated proposals, which they provided, and I forwarded back to the office. We utilized the updated proposals to prepare a board package for the purchase of the bridge, and also to prepare a board package for a Public Works construction contract for the installation of the county furnished bridge up there. So there are actually two contracts to be able to affect the reopening of this crossing. The purchase agreement is currently in circulation. Manufacturer indicates that once they have an approved purchase order, we can expect the bridge delivery within 7 days. And that was one of the reasons I'm recommending one manufacturer over another, as well as price. And then the RFP that we are preparing, and we worked on it a lot, we're hoping to circulate through council's office before, as is required, before we put it on the street for bid. And we're going to try to do as short of a bid process as possible. And that would be approved by FEMA, Cal OES, state purchasing code, as well as county purchasing policy.
Okay, so we're regulated by those policies.
Because we are no longer within the 60-day emergency period of the January 3rd event, where the initial damage was started. That's the window that's given to us by Stafford Act.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Crowitz.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Supervisor Tofinelli, any questions on that? Your light's on. Okay. Thank you. Bring it back to the board. Entertain a motion on item number 16. Moved by Supervisor Mills.
Second.
Second by Supervisor Tofinelli. Any further public comment? Seeing none, I'll bring it back for a vote. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed indicate by saying no. Hearing none, motion carries 5-0, unanimous. Madam Clerk.
Item 17 is from the Sheriff's Department. Accept donations from the Friends of the Calaveras County Sheriff's Office totaling $16,064.51 and recognition of their continued support of the County Sheriff's Office.
Morning, Sheriff.
Good morning, Chair and Board of Supervisors. I had a request from Candace Kesey, the president of Fosco, to do this at another date. She is unavailable today and obviously would like to be here. I don't know what it would take to move it to another date, and I know Diane's not happy about that.
Madam Clerk, I'll hear your argument. Any comments by the board?
Yes, I do, Chair. I would also like to see if we might have an opportunity, because of this being before the board, to review the policy regarding these kind of contributions to your office or to others. I just saw that there was that policy's been in place for so long, and to what level do we need to be engaged in this kind of activity as a board when it could be clearly stated in policy and just simply a budgetary action item? Just a point.
Okay. Further comment on that issue? Supervisor Garamendi.
Make a motion to, do you want to, does Candace have a, Jeff, does Candace have a date that works for her, that she wants us to put this on the calendar, or?
We can do it next week at your special meeting or the week after, either, whatever works for the board,
Probably for the regular meeting?
for a regular meeting.
That's the 27th? Mr. Chair, I make a motion to postpone this.
Actually, set aside is the correct term.
Thank you. Set aside this item until June 27th meeting.
I have a motion to set aside.
I would second.
Second by Supervisor, actually a motion by Supervisor Garamendi, seconded by Supervisor Gary Tolleson. Public comment?
Tollefson? Toffenelli, sir.
Tofinelli. Where'd I get that name?
I don't know. Pulled it out of your hat.
Oh, I used to work with a guy named Gary Tolleson. Sorry. I apologize, Supervisor Tofinelli. Okay, we have a motion. I have a second. Public comment? Okay.
Just in case.
Show me his name tag. No public comment. I'll bring it back to the board for a vote. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed indicate by saying no. Hearing none, motion carries 5-0 to set aside till the June regular board meeting.
Thank you, Board.
Thank you, Sheriff. Madam Clerk.
Item 18 is from the Sheriff's Department. Approve an agreement with Amador County for the confinement of inmates at the Calaveras County Jail for a period of 1 year at a daily rate of $85 per day. Maximum potential revenue, $186,158 annually.
Good morning.
Morning,
Ed Ballard
Captain
with the
Ballard.
Sheriff's Office. What you have before you is something that's been quite a long time in the making. Goes all the way back to approximately 2006 when we first started the jail project, and working through to 2007, 2008 when we ended up having the recession hit us, and some things occurred during that time, and Mr. Tuffanelli. I'm glad you're back because you know this history. And so during that time, we were directed by the board to look at ways that we could collect revenue within the jail in order to help the county general fund. During that time, the Board of Supervisors at that time delayed the project, basically stopped it. We did a lot of staff analysis and surveys, and initially we were going to be able to hire 40 people when we first started, and then it went down to you ain't hired nobody but get revenue and figure out how you can open that jail. So we contacted our counties adjacent to us, the sheriffs in Amador and Tuolumne County, and asked them if they would be interested in renting bed space with us. And they sent us back letters, and I still got those letters dated in 2009 stating that they would rent beds from us because their jails were in the same condition as ours were, and they didn't have available bed space. So it's a long time in coming, and I understand that. And here we are at a point in time where the jail is meeting and exceeding everything that we promised the Board of Supervisors, plus we promised the public and what we'd be doing. This is one more thing to top it off and start renting beds. We've been operating for 3 years. A lot of thought went in this with everybody that works at the sheriff's office about what that threshold is going to be when we'll be able to rent beds. And over the last 3 years, and everything that's happened up there, we're maintaining a average daily population of about 92. Based on our operation, we could handle about 6 more people and still take care of the needs of the county with the inmates that pass through our county. There'll be no interruption in people we're holding accountable. This will be above and beyond and possible good generation of revenue for the county. I'll answer any questions.
Captain, our staffing levels will be able to handle, you indicated approximately 6 more outside agency guests, so we have no problem in staffing?
What I'm basing that on is over the last 3 years, there's been a lot of ups and downs in the jail population there. And the staffing model that we have right now has we've taken care as low as, because when we initially went in there, we said we were, the plan was, we were going to keep our early release program where we're going to only hold 80 inmates. Anybody over that, we were going to release early. So as things started developing, the board did give us a few more positions. Last year, I believe it was, or about a year and a half ago, we stopped that cap, and nobody's getting released early anymore. And then we were able to, I was able to kind of build a model of to where our average daily population is going to currently be outside any more impacts, any more, things thrown at us, Proposition 47s, AB 109s. And I'm really confident that our base for the county at this particular time is we need to, house our average daily population of 92. But we have gone from 92 to 124 and barely got by. But, that was after passage of AB 109 kicked in and Proposition 47 kicked in. And the reason this is timed now is because all of those factors have now come to play. And I'm confident that we can manage 6 more inmates with the current staff that we have.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Further questions of the captain by the board?
Yes, I do.
Supervisor Mills.
Yes, I do. Cap, could you walk us through how this $85 rate was calculated?
Certainly. I'll do the best I can. And once I start looking stupid, I'm going to call her up here.
Yeah, if you'd like your analyst to do it, that's fine.
So basically, the California or the state rate through CDCR is $77.17 a day. Over this process, over these last years, I've done a lot of, I checked with the U.S. Marshal's office, to see if we could, rent beds with them and what their rates are and how they calculate things. And basically, just like the state does it, the U.S. Marshal's office does it, it's all through a direct cost model. And like our direct cost right now per inmate per day is about $5. That's how much, you got to take staff and all the AA87 costs out of there. But we're spending about $5 per inmate per day. So if we rent, at $85 a day, anything above $5 is the profit. So it's a direct cost model. If you need any more, I can call her up.
Maybe she does want to come up, because I want to go a little further with this, and that is that when we calculate all of the jail costs per inmate per day and base it against the costs as posted in IFAS, I want to be sure that we're including all of those costs, including maintenance costs, which are now in the facilities budget and not in the sheriff's jail budget. So I want to be sure that we do understand that we are getting full cost recovery here and not just partial cost recovery, if you understand the question.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
My name is Maria Hensey. I'm the business administrator for the Sheriff's Office. When I received the agreement, it was at $77 a day, and I saw it and I said, my goodness, that's way too low. That doesn't representative of our costs. So I evaluated several models. The captain talked about one, which is just a variable cost model, which is not justifiable in recovering full costs. Variable costs would be cost of toothpaste, a hairbrush, etc. On the far extreme, in putting together a model which would represent full cost recovery, it would include all direct costs, all facilities-related costs, and A87 costs, which is a further indirect cost. That model, once evaluated, was approximately anywhere from 150 to one that was evaluated by the auditor, 247. With those rates in mind, we contacted the Amador County Sheriff's Office and spoke to the undersheriff, Jimmy Wagner, who said, I'm sorry, but the rate we agreed to was $77 a day. We explained to Undersheriff Wagner that that is not a reasonable rate. We needed to at least charge direct costs and indirect costs, Undersheriff Wagner said, well, then I don't necessarily need to bring you any inmates at that rate. But I went back to my desk and I evaluated direct costs and the costs of operating the jail, the indirect costs of operating the jail, and I was able to come up with an $85 a day rate. That rate, I contacted the Department of Finance and I talked to the Department of Finance because they are the original leaseholders of the jail, and asked them if they could give me any guidance about a cost model or a convention. He said, no, I'm afraid I cannot, but I recommend you contact DOJ or ICE and ask them if they could provide you with a cost model. I wasn't able to reach anyone at ICE, but I was able to reach someone at DOJ. The Department of Justice has a model which is used by the U.S. Marshal's Office. That model is a good convention. That model insists that you charge reasonable and fair rates that are current, that are based on direct costs, indirect costs, which in this case, I charged all the costs for operating the jail, but not the A87. That being said, I hung my hat on that convention of the $85 a day based on a model that's used by the U.S. Marshal's Office. It is not full cost recovery in the truest sense, but it's reasonable, and it is based on good convention, which is the U.S. Marshal's Office convention used throughout the nation.
So how many potential incarcerations are we talking about per year here? I mean, if we're only talking about 5 or 6, are we talking about several hundred? Because that's going to play into the decisions as well, I'm sure.
Sure. Supervisor Mills, there's an ability to bring in as many as 6 at any one given time.
Per day.
If the undersheriff at Amador does indeed buy up on our rate.
I noticed that our juvenile rate's around $100 a day. Is that correct?
Is that so?
But there's nobody from probation here, I don't know that.
Okay, just in my research, I had seen something from Tuolumne County, it was $100 a day.
I see, yes.
Does that make sense?
I can talk a little bit to that. It's just being the juvenile officer for so long. It depends on what type of facility they're in. It runs anywhere from about $4,000 to $6,500 a month.
Okay.
So you'll have to do the math. I don't know the day rate, but it's very expensive for juveniles. I know that.
If I also might add to that, I know what you are referring to, and that there are currently a couple places for juvenile beds that we send juveniles to, Nevada County being one, and El Dorado being another. Those rates, off the top of my head, I believe, is roughly 77 for El Dorado, and I think about 90 for Nevada. But again, I'm speaking without that information in front of me, but that's approximately the rate that Tuolumne has requested for using their new facility is that $100 that you reference.
Okay. Should we be looking at a year-over-year percentage increase, just like cost of living, on this kind of a situation, rather than just a flat rate for the entire 3-year period?
Well, I'll handle that.
Yeah.
The point where we're at right now is the sheriff's office is trying to get something going in order to see what is feasible, what we can do in the future. I mean, in the future, hopefully, we'll be able to build the dorm, because the dorm was the original avenue for renting bed space, but we were unable to build that dorm. So, you know, right now, and if I can remember your question, you know, the hope would be is that Amador is going to send us 6 people for 365 days, and then I'll be able to tell you exactly how much revenue we're going to be, and then come back to you at the end of this contract thing and say this is how successful it was, and you know we want to continue it, and you know we want to do a CPI increase of this if Amador agrees with it. On the outside of that, hopefully, we'll be able to have our other surrounding counties want to rent beds from us, and then we can go from there. This, you know, quite honestly, you know, this is a point in time where we're trying to create revenue. You know, I'm not trying to, make a whole bunch of money. I'm trying to get something started so that we can improve the county's finances, plus the sheriff's office finance, and it could grow from there. So, you know, that's where I am. I mean, the 6 people, like I tried to explain, we can cover those. If I don't have those 6 people there, the lights are still going to be on, the electricity is still going to be going, the toilets are still going to be flushing. So, you know, all those A87 costs are still there.
Yeah.
The maintenance of the building is still going. You know, all those types of things. So,
Yeah, I understand the fixed cost aspect of it, and I appreciate the effort on the part of your staff to try to put something together. That's commendable. I just want to be sure that in the course of creating this revenue that we don't end up backfilling from our own general fund for any shortfalls. So maybe the question would be, would it be good to come back at 6 months and kind of give us a report out as to just how this has progressed, and so we know what that is going to look like, so we can have a better idea when we get into budget adjustments, how this is going to impact us?
yeah, certainly. And I mean, you know, that ultimately that would be awesome. I'd love to be able to come back and say everything's working absolutely fine, and this is where we're at.
Yeah, because I think that having a report out would give us a better idea of the success of the plan.
Sure. I just got to get started, Supervisor.
I understand.
Just got to get started.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Captain. One more quick question. The income derived from this is going to be designated for any special fund, or is it going to the general fund?
It'll be going back in the general fund.
In discussions with CAO Lutz, he recommends that it returns to the general fund. We certainly can look at it and evaluate it with the board to see if there's any specific costs that or a specific expense that it could go toward, but it's intended to go back to the general fund.
Okay. Thank you very much for your
You're
time,
welcome.
sir. Ma'am. Thank you.
All right.
Any further questions by the board? Public comment?
Al Segala, Taxpayer Association. One of the things that impact our jail is people committing crimes, and that seems pretty obvious. And there's different kinds of crimes. One of the crimes is possession of cannabis. This board, in this county, is having quite a bit of discussion about that issue, and this can affect the jail population. So my question for the sheriff is, what percentage of the inmates presently are there because of cannabis possession?
Captain Ballard?
Sir, I can answer that because, you know, I've been running the jail for 10 years.
You know that
I
one, huh?
look every single day about what's going on there. Currently, right now, for simple possession, as I understand the question, I have nobody in custody for simple possession. Number one, it's a misdemeanor offense. It's you know, punished by fine, and, you know, most people pay the fines, and most everybody that we deal with in the county have a Proposition 215 recommendation, and no charges are sought. The people that we hold within the jail, specifically related to our cannabis, is people who commit homicide, you know, people who sell large amounts of it outside of the scope or parameters of you know, what they're supposed to be doing. So, and right now, off the top of my head, one just went to prison, and I believe out of 94 inmates I got in there, I think right now I may have one other related to cannabis.
And that's for associated crimes, right?
Yes.
None for
Not
possession?
not possession of personal use, no.
Okay.
Okay? All right.
I think it's really great that the sheriff's office is looking for ways to get themselves some more funding. But I have some questions. What type of the 6 prisoners will they send to us? Are they going to be the model prisoners? Or are they going to be the ones they don't want to put in their jail? And who does that bring with them? What about the visitors? So this is going to impact San Andreas. And we're the ones that get to deal with their visitors and who comes to visit them, and when they release them, and where they go from there. So we heard that the financials said that we are losing $60 per day to put this into place, basically. We are being impacted by AB 108 and Prop 47 currently. That's an ongoing issue. And so some of those folks that were released from the state are coming here, and they're creating a little bit more of those crimes that's going to qualify them to be in jail. So, you know, what's the influx going to be on that? What impact will it have in our community from visitors, and how are you going to evaluate that and the costs to the public? I know you guys are all thinking about how can we make some money here, but what about the public? What about the businesses in this town and the residents in this town who get hammered by burglaries, as well as Valley Springs area? If you want to create revenue, invite industry into the county, not import prisoners. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I was writing down so I could comment on the questions that were asked. What inmates will be coming to this county? It'll be low-risk inmates that are programmed over there, that are not troubled offenders, that have no health conditions or any of that type of stuff. So they'll come over here. Many of the prisoners that are in the Amador County Jail regularly spend time in our jail too. So, you know, that's the thing with the county line. So it'll be programmable inmates that'll be able to come over that we can use on our work programs. Part of any inmate that could come over will have to be able to go with our programs, you know, so I can give them, or they can earn 4019 credits. So they will come over, they're gonna work on our road crew. They're gonna be out cleaning our roads, cleaning the government center, all the stuff that the inmates are doing now. They'll be doing educational classes, and at any time, I don't have to give a reason. If they present a problem to the county, I send them back. Okay, so the only ones that come are the ones that we can deal with. Who visits? Well, right now, we have recently, not recently, but probably about 6 months ago, we did we came before the board and we did the contract with the video visitation. So what has happened just currently in our facility is visitation in the front lobby has been reduced probably by 60–70%. Everybody does it through Skype, through their cell phones or their computers at home. So although I can't predict how many of them have computers or cell phones, I don't see it as a big problem when it comes to visiting or coming over into the county. When it comes to AB 109, statistically within the jail, we've averaged about 12 AB 109 inmates in that jail since 2010. We've never had a real high peak and all that stuff. I can't control what goes on outside of the jail. You know, people are going to commit crimes, nor could I even anticipate anything to prevent that. Secondly, the releases, we will do all of the releases through Amador County. So they'll come pick them up, take them back over there, and release them over there. Was there any other questions? Okay.
Thank you, Captain.
No, I don't. These are all good questions.
Hi, I had 2 questions, but he just answered one. My first question was, do we accept inmates from other counties at this point? Or is this going to be the first agreement that's made? And when they come here, do they become our total responsibility? And I think the officer answered that like Amador would come and transport and do all of that sort of thing. And but my other one was...
There was one question I didn't answer.
Other counties. Do other counties, do you have this agreement with other counties?
Well, this will be our first bed rental contract. Oops. This will be our first bed rental. I usually have a good voice. So this will be our first bed rental contract where we're actually, getting paid for it. But we do have currently within the Sheriff's Department, within Amador, Tuolumne, and even San Joaquin County, where they will bring an inmate up that will house them, and we'll send our inmates to them to house at no charge. And the reason we do that is somebody's family member could have been arrested, brought to Calaveras County Jail, and we need to send them to another jail because they've got a family member working there. We don't want any of those perceived things. Or we might have co-defendants in a case that we need to send them to be separated. Recently I took one from San Joaquin County and held them for about 20 days while they were doing a use of force investigation. They didn't want the inmate there while they were doing all those types of things. So those are things that we do in interagency already. This is just this is above and beyond that, where they can send us additional and pay to stay in our beds.
Thank you, Captain.
Did I answer mine?
Marty Crane, I just have one question. Officer Ballard, I believe, mentioned that the inmates that they bring will not have health issues. We never know what those are. But I recall that we were forced to look at implementing, I believe, inmate health insurance, because maybe it was for catastrophic health or something. And so I'm wondering, do these inmates come with their own health policy from Amador, or do they then come onto ours?
So part of the agreement was, and to answer Marty's first question on a catastrophic leave, right now we got a contract with CFMG. They pay up to $15,000, and so we have the catastrophic insurance coverage to pay above that, and we've actually had to use it, and so the other part of the agreement with Amador is we only get healthy inmates from them. They're only going to send us, healthy, programmable, able to work inmates. If something occurs to that inmate while they're in our facility, then Amador will come and pick them up and take them to the hospital and do whatever they need to do and rehouse them over there, and then we would get another one that does not have medical needs. Okay?
Thank you, Captain.
All right.
Any further comment by the public? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board. Any further comment by the board? Seeing none? I'm
Sorry.
A little short on the finger there, weren't you, Supervisor Mills?
I just want to reiterate too that, it's clear understanding that we will get a report back on this at about the 6-month point to ensure that we are not severely backfilling from our own general fund and that how things are progressing in the numbers.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Any further comment by the board? Supervisor Toffenelli.
Yeah, this is a one-year contract. Supervisor Mills alluded to a 3-year, but it is a one-year contract. And you alluded that we can send inmates back at any time. Even in the contract, it states if we need space for our inmates, we can ship them back to Amador. Or if there's any other problem that occurs, then off they go. We only want model inmates here, correct?
The other thing I want to reiterate that hasn't really brought to everybody's attention yet is Amador still hasn't agreed to that $85. They talked to 77 and we're saying it's going to be 85. So they may not bring anybody.
Okay. This is a proposal then.
Correct. They will.
Okay. So you're asking the board to authorize your proposal?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Having said that, if there's no further discussion by the board, public comment has been held here, and I'll entertain a motion. So moved by Supervisor Clapp.
Second.
Second by Supervisor Garamendi. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed indicate by saying no. Hearing none, motion passes 5-0 unanimous. Thank you, Captain. Thank you, staff. Madam Clerk.
Item 19 is from Public Works to approve the Fourth Amendment to the Professional Services Agreement between Calaveras County and Paratransit Services for a term to expire March 31st, 2018, and an amount not to exceed $535,515.
Thank you, Jeff Krovitz, Public Works. The professional services agreement for transit is for operations and the management of those operations. We run a fixed service, fixed bus routes, and we also run a variable service that allows us to do on-demand, dial a ride, also allows us to deviate from our fixed routes if the streets and roads can handle a deviation based on the size of the vehicle that's being run, up to about 1.5 miles from the regular route. Those would become the variable services. We use this PSA for the operations, but it must also reflect where the transit system is at any given time, which is a continually changing operation. The operation must change to reflect grants that we may be successful in getting, funding streams from federal and state agencies on a number of streams. The funding for transit is as complicated as anything else I do in Public Works. The item before you today is an item that does two things. It extends the term of the agreement to allow us time to complete the RFP for the next competitive request for proposals for operations and management of those operations, which we are nearly ready to send out for review. And it also accommodates changes in our current operations that are a reflection of such things as response to unmet transit needs requests, recommendations of the short-range transit plan, and other changes to the system's operation. So specifically, there is a history of the amendments that we have made. The amendments deal with both schedule and they also deal with cost. Today's issue, or today's extension, deals with extension of the agreement. It still fixes the cost at our current levels, but it also deals with a modification to service that is a result of some of the recommendations that we have implemented as part of the short-range transit plan. And those include the intercity service as well as the Saturday service that we are running. Those services Some of them have been successful, some of them have been unsuccessful, but regardless, we must have our current professional services agreement reflect those hours of operation so the costs can be captured. They can be reported back to the funding agencies for the grants to make them consistent. Unfortunately, where we are at is we were hoping prior to the expiration of the term for this contract, which is at the end of June, to have already been in a position to award a new contract, but unfortunately we're not there. So what we are asking for today is approval of the extension of time to give us time to finish, plus float in case we're not as quick as we think we should be. It also accommodates the changes in the intercity service, which we are hoping to come back to you at the end of the month to eliminate. So it seems a little strange that we're asking you to accommodate changes to the service hours for a service that we know in the future we're going to ask to stop. But unfortunately, that's where we're at with the schedule. We are also looking at, when we come back at the end of the month, coming back to expand or actually change the funding stream for our Saturday service to capture some unused funds from the intercity service to help support the Saturday service, because our grant funding notified us that we are only getting half the money that we thought we were going to get for the next fiscal year. So big picture, that's what this item is for today. It's important to understand that this is not a standalone item. It's also kind of dependent upon the work that we were doing for the RFP. The RFP that we are coming with must meet county, state, and federal requirements of our funding agencies. We must review the RFP through all of our partners, which would include COG, City of Angels Camp, as well as the funding agencies, both federal and state, as well as our internal county policies for RFPs. So the process for transit RFPs takes longer due to the overhead requirements that we have to do. The current PSAs always must reflect current operations and the management of those operations. They must reflect the current reporting requirements that we are required to by our granting and funding agencies. And then it also must be concurrent with the changes to our transit programs. So with that, I will entertain any questions on this current item.
Thank you, Mr. Grovis. Questions of Mr. Grovis? Supervisor Tofinelli.
Yes, Jeff, when you talking about terminating intercity, you're talking Delta Gold Line?
That's exactly right.
And that is in the near future?
Well, it takes some time. So we, because it's a federally grant-funded program, we, in a normal manner, we have to have a public hearing if we're going to add a service or stop a service. That takes a certain amount of time. We could probably do that in 45 to 60 days. And we think we can do the same with this, which means that the Delta Gold Line, for us to be able to meet all of our federal requirements and circulate the termination of the service through the 5311 and 5311F program, we have to go through the proper procedure, which means that for approximately 1/12 of the 17-18 fiscal year, we will be operating the intercity service or the Delta Gold Line. And then for the remainder of the months, we will not. What that would then mean is that we have already accepted that grant for the entire year, but we would then not claim for monies that we did not expend for, let's say, the balance of the 11 months for the next fiscal year. But since that program, since the intercity service is funded by a multitude of funding programs, that would allow us to have a little bit of extra dollars within our control that we could then designate to another service. Okay, I hope I answered your question.
You did, but
Okay.
the thoughts that were going through my head on terminating, because it is a grant, that there would be, you might have some vision of looking, because we talked about this at COG the other night, and the city was very interested in it.
Yes.
Very vocal about it. That it was brought up about intercity between Jackson, it could be a hub, or Lodi being a hub, since they possibly have transportation, because the whole idea is get to hubs where you can go further out, and that was the whole idea for the gold line in this grant. So I don't know if that was an aspect you were looking at, or you're just going to cut totally the grant and drop it there.
Unfortunately, the grant is specific, and the grant was a function, I believe, of a unmet transit need and then a grant application for intercity service. The intercity service grant required a feasibility study, and the feasibility study was to essentially study the feasibility of a intercity service between Calaveras County and a city outside of Calaveras County that provided services that are not available to us in Calaveras County, such as trains. Greyhound, exactly. And so, unfortunately, the 5311 and the 5311F grant funds and the feasibility study under which that grant was received were specific to the intercity service with Stockton. So we can't just say, hey, we're done with the Stockton intercity service. Now we want to redirect those funds to go to Jackson or Sonora. We cannot do that, unfortunately. We would have to go back and do another feasibility study with another grant application to implement the service. Thank you for that question.
Supervisor Mills?
And to that point, how long would that take?
It took us about
A year?
longer than a year.
A year, yeah.
Longer than a year, and we've had the intercity service in place. Now we have 5 quarters, so
if
about a year and a
there's-
quarter.
The point is, if there's plans to do that or make some kind of change, those plans should be started now, not waiting until you're done with what you're doing now.
That's correct.
Okay, just a point.
Further comments by the board to Mr. Clovis or questions? Thank you, sir. We'll open it up for public comment.
House of Gallant Taxpayer Association. I don't know how that man does it. That's so complicated, and it's running, and it's continuing to run, and it's a good thing. But from a taxpayer's point of view, are there any bus services in California that actually pay for themselves? And if they are, maybe we ought to look and see what they're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments by the public? Seeing none, bring it back to the board. No further comments by the board. I will entertain a motion. So moved. Moved by Supervisor Mills. Second? I'll second. Seconded by Supervisor Clapp. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed indicate by saying no. Hearing none, motion carries 5-0, unanimous. Madam Clerk, I believe that completes the regular agenda.
Yes, it does. So to keep with normal practice, will we be reconvening at 1:45 after lunch?
Would there be any objection to reconvening at 1:30 by board members to stay on schedule for folks coming at 1:30 for the budget? I know that cuts your time short, Madam Clerk, and all I want to do is keep you happy.
No problem.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, we will be breaking for lunch, reconvening at 1:30.